Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you, and welcome to the fifth and final installment of this year's Big Virtual Iftar, hosted by the Ahmadiyya Muslim Association in the UK. Ramadan is the 9th month of the Islamic calendar and an incredibly special and blessed time for Muslims all over the world, as they observe fasting for 29 or 30 consecutive days by refraining from eating or drinking during daylight hours, which at this time of the year is for about 17 hours a day in the UK. However, there is a lot more to Ramadan than just refraining from food and drink. It is also a time for prayer, the remembrance of God Almighty, self-reflection, increased giving of charity, community cohesion, and enhancing one's spirituality. So far this year, we have hosted 4 big virtual iftars based on a variety of themes ranging from serving humanity, freedom of speech, and the excellence of Ramadan. During the series, we have been treated to lockdown video diaries, participation by members of the police and armed forces in the National Fasting Challenge, and also a virtual tour of Bat al-Futuh, Western Europe's largest mosque. The theme of today's Big Virtual Iftar is the role of faith organizations in society. We have another packed schedule for you today, including highlights of our Ramadan events this year, and are honored to be joined by 3 distinguished guests, respected Amir Sahib, Rafiq Ahmed Hayat, who is the National President of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Association in the UK, the Right Honourable Jeremy Hunt MP, Chair of the Health and Social Care Select Committee, and the Right Honourable Sir Ed Davey MP, Leader of the Liberal Democrats. We will now begin today's event, as we do for all of our programmes, with a recitation from the Holy Quran.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am going to recite verse number 186 and 187 of Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2 of the Holy Quran. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصم ومن كان مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر ولتكملوا العدة ولتكبروا الله على ما هداكم ولعلكم تشكرون وإذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب أجيب دعوة الداع إذا دعاني فليستجيبوا لي وليؤمنوا بي لعلهم يرشدون. The English translation of these 2 verses as follows. The month of Ramadan is that in which the Quran was revealed as a guidance for mankind with clear proofs of guidance and discrimination. Therefore, whosoever of you is present at home in this month, let him fast therein. But whoso is temporarily sick or is on a journey shall fast the same number of other days. Allah desires ease for you, and He desires not hardship for you. And He desires that you may complete the number, and that you may exalt Allah for His having guided you, and that you may be grateful. And when my servants ask thee about me, say, I am near. I answer the prayer of the supplicant when he prays to me. So they should hearken to me and believe in me, that they may follow the right way. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
You are watching the Big Virtual Iftar. We have just heard a beautiful recitation from the Holy Quran, and we will now move to the next segment of our program, which is a short video which provides a highlight of our Ramadan events in 2021.
رمضان يا خير الشهور يا فضل رحمن غفور فيك البشائر غيثها يهدي السعادة والسرور رمضان يا خير الشهور يا فضل رحمن غفور فيك البشائر غيثها يهدي السعادة والسرور.
The last year saw one of the biggest crises to face the modern world in the form of the COVID pandemic. This has caused immeasurable loss of life, financial strain, and affected the mental health of millions. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community assessed on every level how it could adapt to this situation and serve the wider community. As such, many initiatives were put into action across the UK and the world to serve humanity. In a normal year, every mosque and center across the UK would have opened up to neighbors and friends and invited them to share food and iftar with us. But in these times, it was not possible. As such, the Big Virtual Iftar initiative was born. The Big Virtual Iftar initiative consisted of live stream events, share iftar, Twitter campaigns, and the Ramadan fasting challenge. During the course of 2021, we have brought to you 5 live stream editions of the Big Virtual Iftar. Let's have a look at some of the key moments or highlights that's happened during Ramadan. Our first Big Virtual Iftar was focused around the theme of freedom of speech. In particular, discussing caricatures of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. They were recently shown to students in a school setting.
His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad says, I do not say that you must legally put restrictions on freedom of speech, but we should realize the importance of peace and the importance of the sentiments of others. If, in your view, the peace of society is the foremost goal, then despite the fact that you have the right to say anything you want, a sane person will think twice before utilizing that right. On another occasion, His Holiness said, let it not be that in the name of freedom of speech, the peace of the entire world be destroyed.
Our second Big Virtual Iftar was centered around the theme of the passion to serve humanity. A critical focal point during the month of Ramadan for a Muslim is to serve humanity. As such, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community's humanitarian projects were discussed, such as supplying alternative electricity and fresh drinking water to the remotest parts of Africa, and discussing the work of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community's international charity, Humanity First.
In the last COVID year, from 16th of March to 31st December 2020, I've got this data for you. We've served over 11.3 million meals worldwide. We've operated in 78 countries. This has been delivered by 4,230 volunteers. In addition, we have supported 152 hospitals, provided PPE with 440,000 items, and we have benefited nearly 1 million people. All of this has been done by voluntary contributions of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community globally and their voluntary hours. And we estimated this to be of the value of about $10 million as last year.
Our third Big Virtual Iftar was themed around community cohesion through humanitarian service and particularly focused on the work of the armed forces in response to the COVID pandemic.
When you look at the National Health Service support that we provided, and if you just take a moment, I think, to read the quotes on that slide, you'll get the sense, I hope, that the support we were able to provide to the National Health Service, and this is the front line, as we all know, of the pandemic, and we should all pay tribute to the dedication and sacrifice that our doctors and nurses and paramedics and ambulance drivers and everybody, and the ancillary staff and the cleaners and everybody involved in the NHS have provided. But that we were able to provide a really invaluable and appreciated injection of support. And I think both our clinical staff and the general duties personnel that we put into the hospitals provided a real injection of energy and resilience and discipline, just at the moment where the National Health Service was under probably its greatest pressure. And I think in that sense and in that role, the interaction that we had with our communities was immense.
And finally, our previous Big Virtual Iftar was dedicated to the excellence of Ramadan. This is manifested in so many different ways, both spiritually and physically, and hopefully you had a chance to see some of the beautiful essence of Ramadan through our last few Big Virtual Iftars.
I'm just going to share with you some of the wonderful hadith, the statements of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be on him, which I like on fasting. He said, whoever does not give up forged, in other words, false speech and evil actions, Allah is not in need of his leaving his food and drink. Another one, when Ramadan begins, the gates of paradise are open. This is something that Muslims feel every Ramadan, that their spiritual practices become much easier. And then finally, whoever established prayers on the night of decree, in other words, a special night in Ramadan for the acceptance of prayers, out of sincere faith and hoping for a reward from God, then all his previous sins will be forgiven. And whoever fasts in the month of Ramadan out of sincere faith and hoping for a reward from Allah, then surely all his previous sins will be forgiven. So that's what I want to leave you with. That's the real reason. We don't fast for the medical benefits, but by Allah's grace, we get the medical benefits also.
The Big Virtual Iftar initiative also consisted of a number of activities apart from the live stream event. Let's take a look at a few of these. The first was the Share Iftar initiative. As we were not able to invite our friends to share with us in the breaking of the fast, we began an initiative to send iftar to our friends, colleagues, and neighbors across the country. From the feedback, it seems that they were a huge fan of our more traditional South Asian cuisines. Next was the National Fasting Challenge. The idea here was to challenge our communities to try and fast for a day, a week, or if they so desire, the month. One of the highlights of the fasting challenge was the participation of over 70 officers from the Surrey Police Force and numerous participants across the armed forces. The feedback we received through this initiative was phenomenal, and we had encouragement groups and chats along the way to support our friends as they gave it a go.
I've taken part today in fasting for Ramadan. First time I've done it. Started with getting up at 3:30 this morning, a Zoom call at 4 and 12 minutes past 4, that was it. No food or drink all day long. So it's been a long day and I'm feeling quite cold and a bit tired now, but it's given me food for thought. I know one of the reasons for doing it is to think of those who are less fortunate than us, and I'm lucky that at 21 minutes past 8 this evening I'll be able to eat something and drink something, and I'm looking forward to that.
And then there were the lockdown video diaries. This series was a feature we brought back from last year. It allowed our viewers to see what a typical day looks from the viewpoint of a member of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community.
So now I've just prayed my morning prayers, known as the Fajr prayers, and I'm just outside of the mosque, so I will show you the mosque now. Here it is, it's called the Fazl Mosque in London. So people are coming in and out, they're just turning the lights off. And this is the first mosque that was built in London in 1924.
One of the things that I love about Ramadan is that just like the spring, when it comes you can feel the warmth, which in this case is created by the fasting. No food, no water. But what's really, really nice about it is that there's a vibe in the air. And my day normally starts with prayer And throughout my day, at some point, I always try to focus on the study of the Holy Quran, which was revealed during this month.
There was also the virtual tour of the mosque. Now, this was a segment we also did last year. However, previously with lockdown restrictions, we were unable to have a host actually walk you through the mosque. It was nice to see our mosque inhabited by people once again, and to see someone actually giving you a tour of the mosque and the complex, and even providing news on our latest extension to the mosque. Hopefully next year we will be giving you that tour in person. Through these initiatives, we have had over 10,000 views of our live streams, over 100 participate in the Ramadan challenge, and shared hundreds of iftar meals across the country. We certainly hope you've enjoyed watching the Big Virtual Iftar. It has been our pleasure to invite you on a weekly basis and to hear from you all. We look forward to seeing you again next year. And in the meantime, Ramadan Mubarak.
صومنا وقيامنا أنت الشكور.
Welcome back, viewers. You are watching the Big Virtual Iftar. As a reminder, we are live streaming via YouTube Live and Facebook Live. Please remember to post any comments via the chat, subscribe to our channel, and press the like button. It gives me great pleasure now to introduce our first guest of this evening, the Right Honourable Jeremy Hunt. I'll give a bit of background to Jeremy first. So Mr. Jeremy Hunt is currently serving as chair of the Health and Social Care Select Committee, a post he has held since January 2020. From July 2018 to July 2019, he served as Secretary of State for Foreign and Commonwealth Affairs. From September 2012 to July 2018, he served as Secretary of State for Health and Social Care. In June 2018, Jeremy became the longest serving Secretary of State for Health in British history. A member of the Conservative Party, he has been a Member of Parliament for South West Surrey since 2005. Jeremy has also set up a charity called Nyumbani, if I've pronounced that correctly, to help AIDS orphans in Africa, in which he continues to play an active role. I will now request Jeremy to share with us some of his thoughts.
Thank you very much, Tarek. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, friends. It's my first virtual iftar, and it's a great privilege to come together at a moment when we enjoy both physical and spiritual food, and a moment when we remember that discipline and devotion are the essence of any faith. It's also, in this country, a moment when we celebrate diversity and different faiths coming together. And that is something that the Ahmadi community has always been in the forefront of, with its wonderful, wonderful philosophy, love for all and hatred for none. Now, I know that there is a hadith which says God helps the servant so long as the servant helps his brother. And I think this is a year when we all want to remember the people who've been helping their brothers through the horror of the pandemic. I know that everyone will want to remember people in the NHS and the care system who have been there for us, risking their lives day in, day out to try and save as many lives as possible through the onslaught of the pandemic. But also we remember our brothers and sisters in India and Pakistan with having the most horrific experiences at the moment that unfortunately we're having to see in our TV screens every night. We also remember people who are suffering at the moment in Palestine and the great sadness that's happening there. And through all this great tradition of helping our brothers, we remember the role of faith organizations. And it was a particular inspiration for me to go to Farnham to see the work of the Ahmadi community organizing a vaccination program in Farnham. And that, of course, dovetails so much with the work of Humanity First done by the community. So as we celebrate the diversity, we celebrate the bringing together of people of different faiths, There's one other group that I think we should remember, which is people who are living in countries where that diversity is not celebrated, and the shocking numbers of people who are still persecuted for their faith, whether it's the Ahmadis in Pakistan, or whether it's Christians in other countries, or anyone who's persecuted. Freedom of worship, freedom of conscience must be something that we all support. I want to finish by thanking my friends in the Ahmadi community who have contributed so much to the community I represent in Southwest Surrey. Thank you for being so inclusive, for helping so many people to learn about the fundamental, peaceful core of what Islam stands for, and bringing together faiths and people of the world as a result. Thank you very much, and have an enjoyable and fulfilling iftar. Over to you, Tariq.
Thank you, Jeremy, for those very kind and thought-provoking words. We are delighted to have you with us here this evening. It now gives me a great pleasure to introduce our second guest of the evening, Sir Ed Davey, MP. Sir Edward is the leader of the Liberal Democrat Party, having been elected in August 2020. From September 2019 to August 2020, he served as deputy leader of the Liberal Democrats and also spokesperson for the economy and social justice. From February 2012 to May 2015, he served in the Cameron-Clegg coalition government as Secretary of State for Energy and Climate Change. He is a member of Parliament for Kingston and Surbiton and has been campaigning on key issues, including stopping a harmful Brexit, the climate emergency, and for local police and train services. He received a knighthood from the Queen in the 2016 New Year's Honours. We are delighted to have Ed with us this evening. Over to you to please share some of your thoughts.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm so pleased to join you all this evening. Thank you so much for inviting me. I imagine it's felt very strange to celebrate Ramadan again with the COVID restrictions in place. When you're missing your loved ones, the celebrations are muted, and frankly, we're all tired of Zoom and all the platforms we use. But it's important that we keep making the sacrifices, and I think we should be proud as a community and as a country in how we've come together. Of course, Ramadan is a time of reflection, a time of renewal and generosity that's so needed in our communities at the moment, as we think of the challenges that we've all faced together. I've learned so much from developing my relationship with the Ahmadiyya community. And I think it's taught me about the importance of community. It's reinforced my belief that we can only be strong as a society if we value community and we indeed value the role of faith in communities. And I've been asked to talk about the role of faith organizations in communities in my brief remarks tonight. And I start with, of course, the challenge that we've had as a country and as a world with the COVID pandemic. And it's been very clear in the community I represent, the importance of faith communities responding to that. So I'm a Christian. I've seen in the Christian community how people have responded through helping to feed people in the community, whether it's through food banks, through taking food around to neighbors, whether it's been looking after homeless people, thinking after elderly people. And I know in the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, you have, as so often, gone the extra mile to help people who are hungry, people who are needy, the elderly in our community. And I want to thank you for the amazing work that the community has done yet again on so many levels, not just on food, on playing a part with the health service, with the care workers, playing a part in getting hold of PPE when it was so scarce. Ventilators, indeed. Amazing contribution that the Ahmadiyya community has made, and I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And of course, as we've come out of, hopefully are coming out of this horrible, horrible moment, the role that the Ahmadiyya community has played in the vaccination program, using mosques, using your community links to help so many people, not just in your own community, but outside your community. Nothing has been clearer than that work to show the Islamic principle of acting in service. And again, I just think it's been so important. And we've seen that in other communities. We know if we take the vaccination challenge, there have been some communities who've been worried about being vaccinated. I particularly think in the Afro-Caribbean community where there's been a lot of misinformation, and it's been the black churches who've played a really important role in trying to get the message to that community. And I'm sure that that's been the case with you too. And that focuses, I think, our attention on what the faith community can do, how it can reach people in a way that no politician can ever do. I regret to say that sometimes people don't always trust politicians. I'm sure Jeremy would understand that whatever political party you're from, that sometimes, unfortunately, that is the truth. And so the faith community, where not just the followers of faith, but people who listen to faith leaders, they have such an important role of convincing people that this is the right path. And His Holiness, as such an amazing spiritual leader, has done that time and again. And I know whether it's His Holiness or other leaders in your community, you've played such a role in ensuring that people have that trust, have that confidence, whether it's in the vaccination program or the confidence to go out and help others at this time of great hardship. Obviously through Humanity First, where that work is extended not just to the communities across the UK, but indeed across the world. Let me end by just making that point about international communities that Jeremy made, whether it's in Pakistan, of course, India, Palestine, across the whole world, where so many people have suffered so greatly in the last year. And why it is so important that whatever faith you have, you live that faith, you live it in the community by that expression of sacrifice, that expression of willingness to go and help your neighbor. So I want to end just by thanking you, not just for inviting us tonight and for the food that I'm told is being delivered to my house. Thank you for that. But far more importantly, thank you for what you do year in, year out. And indeed, I know that your community, through Humanity First and frankly through everything that community represent, is there and has been there for us. So thank you for the role you play in our country, in our community. Ramadan Mubarak.
Ramadan Mubarak to you as well, Ed. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and some very kind words. We are delighted to have you here with us this evening. I'm now honored to introduce our keynote speaker for this evening, respected Amir Sahib Rafiq Ahmed Hayat, the National President of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Association in the UK, who will be addressing us on the role of faith organizations in society. I would request Amir Sahib to now address us.
Thank you. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Respected Jeremy Hunt, respected Sir Ed Davey, respected Ibrahim Ikhlifsail, the organizer of this event, and all the participants, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. It is indeed a great pleasure for me to be here and join you on this very special event of the Virtual Iftar. Of course, we are holding this Virtual Iftar because of the pandemic. And it is obviously during the pandemic, it has been very difficult to hold physical events. But I think this is a very innovative and creative idea of our team and the outreach team to try and organize such an event. And I'm very grateful to you. Thank you very much. So the topic that's been given to me today is the role of faith organizations in society. Organized religion, also known as institutional religion, is religion in which belief system and rituals are systematically arranged and formally established. Organized religion is typically characterized by the official doctrine or dogma, or hierarchical or bureaucratic leadership structure, and codification of rules and practices. Religion can be a central part of one's identity. The word religion comes from Latin word that means to tie or to bind, together. Modern dictionaries define religion as an organized system of belief and rituals centering on supernatural beings. To belong to a religion often means more than sharing its belief and participation in its rituals. It also means being part of a community and sometimes a culture. Now, until the events of 9/11, the world faiths sat very respectfully, and millions of people who belong to these faiths practice their faiths in harmony and in peace in most parts of the world. However, 9/11 changed that, and a lot of people started wondering whether Islam was the one that is creating problems in this world and therefore perhaps not fit for the 21st century. A lot of people wanted to find out more about this faith, and they came to a lot of the religious leaders in Islam and asked to learn more about it. And the way I define Islam is, firstly, I say to them, you have to understand what is faith. Faith is a code of conduct that defines the rules by which you can have a peaceful and harmonious society. It defines how you have harmony between husband and wife, between the family, between society, nationally, internationally, and it defines all those rules. And the second part of faith is your relationship with your Creator. And if we all believe in the same God, it is not possible that He sent a separate message to Prophet Ibrahim, a separate message to Prophet Moses, a separate message to Prophet Jesus, and a separate message to Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon them all. The fundamental message is the same, how to create peace and harmony in society. And if that is the case, why is it that today faith is being blamed for most of the ills that we are experiencing in this world? Now, I think to answer that question, we have to understand that perhaps as we move away from the founder of the faith becomes corrupted. And therefore, people move away from the basic fundamental principles of faith. And once the faith becomes corrupted, and often faith is used by interested parties, some religious leaders, to exercise control and power in society. And when that becomes the main objective, then the society moves away from the path of justice, and therefore peace cannot be achieved in that society. So what is it that we can do to try and bring peace and justice into our society? I feel, firstly, if we start at the very basic level, where we have churches, mosques, synagogues, and temples, they can play a very important role at building a resilient society. Because a lot of the society is very, as Ed Davey said, respect the faith leaders more than sometimes they respect their political masters. And therefore, this imposes a heavy duty on the faith leaders that they must conduct themselves in a proper manner and practice the faith in such a way that they become examples for the rest of the world to follow. Now, in this difficult period, for instance, where I feel that the faith leaders should have a very important role to play, is that in the pandemic, when people are going through a very difficult period, people are going through isolation, depression, and fear, that faith leaders could inspire them by providing leadership. And in this respect, we could obviously hold functions like this, today's virtual iftar, where we could be reaching out to thousands and millions of people, if possible, to try and bring all of the various faiths together under one platform and try and create peace and harmony in our society. Then, during this pandemic, we could do a more practical example of how we could serve our communities. For instance, the communities could be involved with using their premises for the vaccination clinics that the government has been trying to organize throughout the country. In this respect, I can say with some pride that our community, the largest mosque and the various mosques around the country, were made available to the National Health Service to organize vaccination clinics throughout the country. Now, according to a study, 85% of the world's population has faith in religion, and in many cases, religion occupies a central place in their lives. Its significant component strengthens the psychological resilience of an individual and community in the face of crisis. It encourages people to assist the sick, the poor, the orphans, the oppressed, and those who are affected by disease. In the present crisis, forging collaboration of religious institutions with public health systems and other activities can lead to many improvements in addressing emergencies at national, regional, and local levels. The religious leaders and preachers of all local communities are often the most trusted locally, and have higher outreach to people than government officials or other leaders. Subsequently, local faith leaders are considered key actors in peace-building initiatives and the development of a community-based disaster management system. They can play a crucial role in executing and distributing essential materials supplied by the government or various organizations amongst the needy in the society. Now, we have seen that faith has been blamed for quite a lot of ills in our society. However, I would like to look at this and see if that is a valid accusation against the faith communities. Allah the Almighty says in the Holy Quran that, and if Allah has enforced His will, he would have made you all one people. But he wishes to try you by that which he has given you. Vive then with one another in good work. To Allah shall you all return, and then he will inform you of that therein you differed. So we have all been sent by that one creator to this earth. And the whole purpose of our creation is to gain communion with him, to be able to win his love and favor, and to be able to be of service to his creation, to the people on this earth. And if we are going to try and be of service to people on this earth, then it has to be done through equity and justice, goodwill, and we have to be ourselves first the shining examples of such attributes of God, so that then we can reach out to the society and try and bring change in the society through our own conduct. Now, Islam, if you look at it, has always propagated justice. The holy founder of Islam, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, he left a legacy that is recognized today by both religious and secular thinkers. He is recognized not only as a humble man whose character was exemplary, but also stood out as a just political figurehead. He was responsible for perhaps one of the most important political documents in history, the Constitution of Medina. The Constitution or the Charter of Medina predated the English Magna Carta by some 6 centuries. The Holy Prophet Muhammad penned the Charter of Medina as a minority sovereign. This was the first ever charter of human rights found in documented history and forms the basis of the rule of law used today by all developed nations. This charter proved that true Islam was indeed a fortress of peace for all faiths, which the Prophet ﷺ, the promised reformer, has come to revive. In other words, in his last sermon, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, spoke about the equality of all nations and races. He stated that one thing that should truly define us is righteousness. During the reign of the Khulafa Rashidin, his successors, the 4 righteous Khulafas, the Muslim nations was a great example of peace, tolerance, and acceptance of all. But sadly, this began to decline after the demise of the 4 Khulafas of Islam. From then on, Muslims became more and more divided. In recent years, Islam has not seen as a guiding light for peace, but in fact has become synonymous with war and discourse. In the past 200 years, Muslims have not made history, but in fact they have become victims of it. They have become lost in the dark ages that they guided the modern West out of today. In a commentary written by Karen Armstrong for the Times, she summarizes it as such: contrary to the popular belief that Islam is not addicted to war and jihad, it's not one of the pillars or the essential practices. The primary meaning of the word jihad is not a holy war, but a struggle. It refers to the difficult effort that is needed to put God's will into practice at every level, personal and social as well as political. A very important and much quoted tradition has Muhammad telling his companions as they go home after a battle, we're returning from the lesser jihad, the battle, to the greater jihad, the far more urgent and momentous task of removing wrongdoings from one's own society and one's own heart. In this darkness, there is a beacon of hope, a shining light, a guide from in the form of the promised reformer of Islam, the promised Messiah, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, may peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. He invited the whole mankind to the way of God. True to the old traditions, only a few people, young, poor, and lowly, accepted his message initially. He was, however, given the glad tidings that his message would reach and be accepted in the far corners of the earth. The Ahmadiyya community are fortunate that Allah the Almighty has bestowed us with the blessings of the institution of Khilafat. These are the successors to the Prophet or the Reformer. Each Khalifa, following the demise of the Promised Messiah, has devoted his life towards the fulfillment of the visions of the Promised Messiah. All see how gracious the prophecy of I will cause thy message to reach the corners of the earth is being fulfilled, and how Ahmadiyya has been and is spreading throughout the world. And each Khalifa has continued to guide the followers in the true path. We are very blessed in this country that we have His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, may Allah be his helper, who is the fifth successor of the promised reformer, and he lives amongst us. And he has been a leading light in trying to create peace in our society. And he has traveled the whole world and addressed the highest forms on the importance of peace and justice. And in every address to the community, he has been guiding us and admonishing us and pleading us to reform ourselves to the true path of Islam, the path followed by the companions of the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, the companions of the promised Messiah, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. On October the 17th, 2016, His Holiness delivered a historic address at the Canada's National Parliament, Ottawa. During his address, he spoke about the importance of peace and religious freedom. If peace cannot be established through dialogue, then other nations should unite against whosoever is perpetrating injustice and the use of force to stop them. Once the aggressor adopts peace, they should not be humiliated, nor should unfair sanctions be levied upon them. Rather, in the interest of fairness and long-term peace, they should be permitted to move forward as a free society. His Holiness has dedicated his life to show the true and wonderful benefits of Khilafat, that the true Khilafat really stands for, instead of the misconception perpetrated by the likes of al-Baghdadi, who use their platform to spread hate. His Holiness has been a fortress of peace in the age that submerged the Muslim world into darkness, carrying the torch of the promised reformer, and in doing so, bringing people back to the light of Islam. During the annual convention in Germany, he stated, the sole concern of the Ahmadiyya Khilafat is that people of the world to come to recognize their creator and bow down before one God, and secondly, create the spirit of love and harmony amongst the people of the world. So this is our challenge in today's society, that somehow we have to create peace and harmony in our society. We must continue with our meager efforts, whatever we can do. And the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, we will continue their endeavors in this very important role that's been given to them. And we hope and pray that one day, for the sake of our children, for the sake of the future of this earth, we can bring some peace based on justice into our society. And hopefully, we pray that we can see that in our own lifetimes. May God bless you all, and thank you for joining us on this very holy day, on this virtual iftar. Thank you very much.
Jazakallah, Amir Sahib, for that truly inspirational address on the role of faith organizations in society. Viewers, you are watching the Big Virtual Iftar. Before we move to the next segment of our program, I would like to do a quick plug for our Twitter handles to tweet at @true_Islam UK and at AMY UK. Also, we would like to thank all those who have taken part and shown solidarity with us in the National Fasting Challenge, which have been from friends, colleagues, members of the uniformed services, both in the armed forces and the police forces. We want to acknowledge Warrant Officer John Thacker of the Royal Navy Area Engagement Team for Wales and West Midlands, who has completed the full 30 days of fasting challenge. Well done, John. Many thanks, and I'm sure we will be in touch. We will now move to the next segment of today's Big Virtual Iftar, which is a question and answer session with our three distinguished guests today. Rafiq Sahib, who is the National President of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Association for the UK, Right Honourable Sir Ed Davey, Member of Parliament for Kingston and Surbiton, and the Right Honourable Jeremy Hunt MP for South West Surrey. I will start by coming to Amir Sahib, please, first. Amir Sahib, what are the unique features of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community that have enabled it to contribute positively to the society?
I think we, as a faith organization, practice the true teachings of our faith, which is of service to humanity. And in order to serve humanity, we have to bring about change in our own selves and become true God-fearing individuals. And when you do that, then you can, with an open heart, serve the people around you. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community, through its leadership of Khilafat, has been serving people, poor people throughout the world. We've been opening hospitals, we've been opening schools, we've been doing all kinds of programs to feed the poor, to bring clean water to those very poor people in the poorest parts of Africa, where sometimes children have to travel several hours just to get some dirty water from a pond. And these are such important things and life-changing things for those poor people that the community is spending a lot of its time, is sending its engineers, its scientists, and its teachers and doctors to various countries around the world to try with just one purpose, is to help the poor in this world, to help the needy in this world. And it is done with no no fees or no consideration from those people. It's done free of charge, irrespective of faith, creed, or color. And that should be what faith leaders should be doing throughout the world.
Thank you, Amir Sahib. Perhaps I'll come to Jeremy next. Jeremy, what are the most notable contributions by faith organizations for society that you have personally observed? Jeremy, you might be on mute.
Sorry about that, Tarek.
It's all right.
It was going to happen once, wasn't it?
Yeah.
My own first experience of that was actually when I was doing some charity work in the slums of Nairobi in Kenya, and I was really impressed to see the work of Catholic nuns in the slums in Nairobi, and they were going to places that no one else would go to. They were usually of Indian origin, and the work was just incredibly humbling to see that. And I think, like Ed, I'm a Christian, and I think that at its best, faith has the ability to sustain you in the most challenging of situations. And I think some of those slums are really some of the toughest places on the planet to live. And what you see there is really inspiring, because you see people who are finding richness in their work in those communities. And I think that's exactly what we've seen from the Ahmadi community as well. I remember around that time, Gordon Brown went on a famous trip to Africa, and he, I think, is someone who came back, and that was the one big surprise of his trip for him personally, was to see this work of faith-based organizations in tackling poverty. So I think it's probably Africa where I've seen it most at work.
Thank you for that, Jeremy. Yes, inspiring, very inspiring indeed. I'll come now to Sir Ed. In what ways have the Liberal Democrats been actively engaging with faith organizations? You are also on mute, Ed. Seems to be the theme of the year.
And I apologize. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. Yeah.
I have a TV program that's trying to Skype me, so I hope that's not noise isn't coming over too much. The Lib Dems get very involved with faith organisations, actually, both at local level, whether it's councillors, whether it's MPs, as well as the national work. I think it's the local engagement, though, that means the most. And you'll find Liberal Democrat council MPs who have faith, who get engaged, frankly, whether they were in the Liberal Democrats or not. And then you'll have Liberal Democrat councillors who, whether they've got faith or not, recognise how important faith organisations can be in their community. Doing things that, frankly, as I mentioned before, governments, local authorities, politicians can't do. So let me give you one or two examples from my constituency. There's an organisation that's been going for 30 plus years called Kingston Churches Action on Homelessness. That's a Christian charity, but it does more work for homeless people and manages to reach out to them in a way that the council isn't able to do. And I do a lot of my work in my constituency when I'm dealing with people with homeless problems. I work very much with Kingston Churches Action on Homelessness, just as much as I probably do with the council. So there's a real classic example of a faith-based organization that is right at the roots, right at the grassroots, getting things done. When I've been to Jalsa Salanas, though, I should say I've seen the amazing work that Humanity First does at grassroots, not just in this country, but obviously across the world, where people from the Ahmadiyya community are doing that sort of type of thing. And it's poverty alleviation, the way that Jeremy was describing, but it's also sort of long-term thinking of how a village, how an area can develop itself so it can become independent and self-sustaining. So some of the work that Humanity First does on, I hope you can hear that, they're trying to get hold of me.
We can still hear you.
Yeah, good. The work they've done on water, for example, on wells, and how significant that can be, both for obviously drinking, but also for agriculture. And then you've got issues around energy, and I've seen the amazing work that Humanity First has done with solar energy. So these are all examples of how different groups have been involved. The Liberal Democrats will get involved at the local level, but also supporting communities like the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, and frankly, wanting to highlight and give greater awareness of that type of work that happens here in the UK, but across the world too.
So thank you, Ed, for some fascinating examples that you've shared with us just now. I will come back to Amir Sahib. Amir Sahib, what are the key messages of the Caliph of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, Ayyadahullah Ta'ala bin Nasr al-Aziz, in relation to the collective responsibility of society towards achieving universal harmony?
You see, His Holiness has been traveling all around the world trying to promote the message that peace can only be achieved through justice. And unless we have justice in this world, we will not be able to achieve true peace. The problem that we have at this moment in time is that there are too many interests of powerful nations which always take priority over justice. And as long as we, our politicians, are able to be honest and give us true leadership and give us the true road to a just society, we will not achieve true peace. And His Holiness basically has been going around and saying that we have to change society and try and do it on the basis of peace. Although, as you know, that we are one of the most persecuted societies in Pakistan. And even there, he has never propagated that we speak against or take up any kind of arms against the people of Pakistan. In fact, he's always talking about the interest of Pakistan, always trying to protect the interest of Pakistan, and saying these are our brothers and sisters there, and we should pray for them. Pray that may God bring change in their heart, and that may be able to see the truth. And really, truth and change will only come through God the Almighty. He's the one who opens hearts. He's the one who can bring change. And God gives society a lot of room to try and bring change. But then if they're unable to change, then God has His own way of bringing change in society. And this pandemic that we're going through perhaps is an indication of how God has, in 1 second, brought such huge change to the society. The climate change that we were trying to deal with for so long, we could have never achieved what has happened in the last few months. And therefore, eventually, it will be God who will bring change on this earth. Our job is to pray and try and bring everyone together in that road to peace.
Jazakallah, Amir Sahib. We now only have 2 or 3 minutes left before we will be breaking the fast. And so I'd just like to share a few thoughts with our viewers. So it is tradition for Muslims to open their fast with a date or with some water, because that was the practice of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. Of course, people can open their fast with whatever is really available for them to do that. And I understand and I hope that we've got some food parcels that are on their way or have arrived with Ed and Jeremy. So no doubt we'll be coming back to them later in the show to see how they are getting on with that. So now that we are approaching the end of the fast, I would like to say that Muslims will wait for the call for prayer or the azan before opening their fast. Before I do that, I would like to recite the prayer in Arabic and the English translation that Muslims recite as they open their fast. So the prayer in Arabic is Allahumma laka sumtu wa bika amantu wa alayka tawakkaltu wa ala rizqika aftart. And the meaning of this in English is, O Allah, I fasted for your sake, and I believe in you, and upon you do I rely, and with your provision do I end my fast. This is the prayer that is recited by Muslims when they hear the call for prayer, the evening prayer, and it brings to a conclusion the end of the fast. It is now time for the call for prayer. We will see you on the other side.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
Welcome back, viewers. You are watching the Big Virtual Iftar We just heard the call for the evening prayer, which signifies the end of the fast. And it's at this time that Muslims recite the prayer, which I shared just before the call for prayer, and break their fast. I have just had a date and some water, and have been treated to some fruit salad. I've also received my dinner as well, which I'll share in a moment. But we've still got respected Amir Sahib and Jeremy Hunt, MP, with us. Jeremy, has your food parcel arrived, and are you able to sort of share with us what's in it?
I have. It's a wonderful food parcel. Thank you very much. I've got a spring roll right here, but the rest of it is in the kitchen. So I'm looking forward to tucking in as soon as the video completes. But thank you very much indeed for your generosity and sharing the iftar with me.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jeremy, for joining us. It's been a real honor and a pleasure. So with that, I would like to draw our program to a close. It's been a real pleasure having all of our guests and viewers with us over this series of Big Virtual Iftars. This is the 5th and final installment for this year. Inshallah, we will be back next year for our next series of Big Virtual Iftars. God willing, at that stage, the COVID pandemic would have abated, the situation would have improved, and inshallah, we'll be able to meet in person. With that, I would like to request respected Amir Sahib to please lead us in silent prayer so that we can bring this program to a close.
Will you join me in silent prayer, please? Ameen.
Ameen. Jazakallah, Amir Sahib. That brings us to the end of the Big Virtual Iftar. Our thanks once again to all of our viewers, and we would like to wish everyone a very heartfelt Eid Mubarak, and we look forward to welcoming you again on one of our programs soon. Thank you very much.